Hey, let's talk about St. Patrick. Comes around every March 17th. What's the deal with Patrick? What's the deal with St. Patrick's Day? Is he religious? Is he a saint? Who is he? What's the deal with the shamrock? Um, did he get rid of all of the snakes in Ireland? And then what about St. Patrick's Day, March 17th? What about wearing green? What about green beer and corned beef? Where's all of that come from? Well, the green, let's do that first. The green comes because Ireland is known as the Emerald Isle. Why? Because it's so green and so lush and so amazing. The green of Ireland. And so people wear the green. And St. Patrick's Day is in the spring. So you take the green and you take the spring of St. Patrick's Day, and people wear the green to celebrate Ireland, celebrate St. Patrick. Because St. Patrick's is, if in fact in Ireland, a religious holiday, but globally it becomes a celebration of the Irish people themselves and of the land. So, what about the green beer and the corned beef and cabbage? Well, the thing about corned beef is it's not really a thing that came from Ireland itself, but it did come from the Irish people. It's more of a New York thing, maybe Chicago, Boston, but mostly New York. When the Irish moved to New York, fleeing poverty, a lot of them, they were still relatively poor. And back home, when they would celebrate the feast of St. Patrick as a religious holiday, they would celebrate it with bacon or maybe lamb. But when they moved to New York and were poorer, hadn't come out of that poverty yet, they would go to the Jewish butchers and they would buy this beef brisket, and it was a tough meat. And so what they would do is they would salt it and they would cook it for a long time. What about the cabbage? Well, the cabbage was a relatively inexpensive vegetable, so they would cook the cabbage with it, and maybe potatoes as well. So that's where you get the corned beef and cabbage. It's not really coming from the motherland. It's coming from Irish people, but really coming out of the cities when they migrated to the United States. What about the green beer? Who knows? That's got to be a commercial venture that was born probably in the United States. Just trying to get people to buy more beer, I guess, on St. Patrick's Day. Well, how about St. Patrick? Did he rid the land of snakes? They say he did. Well, I don't want to dispel that one, but probably not. Geology and fossils of the land tell us that after the glaciers, there were probably no snakes in Ireland. So, how that came to be attributed to St. Patrick, who knows? Except that sometimes we like to make our heroes bigger than they are. But he was quite the hero, actually. Well, who was he? Well, he was born in the 5th century. They say maybe around 430, maybe 434. Nobody knows exactly, but right around then. He was born in Britain. He was a nominal Christian, which means that he wasn't really a believer, sort of born into a Christian neighborhood, a Christian family, but he wasn't a believer. At 16, he was captured by Irish pirates and brought to Ireland. And it was there, under duress, as a slave, that he began to pray and he began to seek God. He began to call out to God. And it was during that time that he was firmly converted to Christ, made Jesus his Lord and Savior. And so 6 years into his slavery, he escapes and he returns home. When he returns home, he continues to pursue this relationship with Jesus. He continues to pursue this relationship with Christ. It wasn't, as some call it, jailhouse religion, where you come to Jesus and have this come to Jesus moment at a difficult time in your life, but as soon as things are better, you leave it behind. That wasn't him at all. He was genuinely converted and made Jesus not only his Savior, but his Lord. And so in Britain, he ends up getting some theological education, and he had a vision And the vision was that he was to return to Ireland as a missionary and go there and tell them what happened to him and who he had found as Lord and Savior Jesus. So when he moves back, he says that he baptized thousands of people, from rulers and wealthy people to commoners. He trained a lot of ministers, and he left them to shepherd the newly established gatherings of the flocks of believers. It's said of Patrick that he used the shamrock. What about the shamrock? What is the deal with that shamrock? And how does that fit into the whole thing, the shamrock? Well, it was said that Patrick used the shamrock to teach the new converts about the Trinity. What's the Trinity? The Trinity is a concept that's taught in the Bible. The word's not in the Bible, but the concept is that God is one. There's only one God, but he exists eternally in three distinct persons, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Well, how can that be, that the three can be one? Well, he used the shamrock to show that the three could be one. Difficult concept to understand, but he used the shamrock as an illustration or as a parable. But this idea of the three being one isn't so hard to understand because it's one of the signatures that's found all throughout creation. What do you mean? Well, modern physics teaches us that the universe that we're familiar with and the universe that we live in is made up of time, space, and matter. And all of those things need to have been created at the same time because they can't exist without each other. And so what we've learned, with modern physics is that space and matter is, what causes us to have time. Well, you can't have matter if you don't have any place to put it, so you need to have space. So they all were created at the same time. God created them. So there's a Trinity, time, space, and matter. Father, Son, and Spirit. Any other Trinities? Yeah, right in that Trinity of time, space, and matter, time has its own Trinity. Past, present, future. Well, what else? Time, space, and matter. So time is past, present, future. Space, height, width, depth. Wow. Matter, solid, liquid, gas. And everything that is made out of something that we can't see called atoms, the building block of the universe. Protons, neutrons, electrons. Trinity. The three are one. The three are one, and you can't separate them from each other. So you can't separate the Father from the Son, or the Son from the Spirit, or the Spirit from the Father. You can't separate them. Just like you can't separate time, space, and matter. Otherwise, it would never exist. So he used the shamrock to teach that to people. And I can be a son, a father, and a brother. So back to Patrick in St. Patrick's Day. Patrick is said to have died on March 17th. And so we celebrate on that day, St. Patrick's Day. So we celebrate it on the day of his death and not the day of his birth. And his celebration, at least in Ireland, is religious. Globally, it's a celebration of the Irish people and the country itself, the nation itself. In the United States, it becomes a big celebration of the people of the country. But some of us, self-included, still see that Patrick was a believer and that it really is a time to reflect on who God is, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Spirit. It really is a time to reflect on the idea that people get converted. People go from being non-believers to believers, just like Patrick did. People go from having no real influence in the world or on the planet to having a lot of influence, like Patrick did, because of his relationship with God. So Patrick was a slave who found his freedom, found Jesus as his Lord and Savior, and he's left us an amazing history and an amazing story. And so my family, we like to celebrate the day as best we can. We like to do all of the trappings and send the kids off to school in green and all of that. And so let's remember what was important to Patrick. The green, the lush land, springtime, things coming to new life, things being born again, and the Father, the Son, the Spirit. And so may the Father, the Son, the Spirit be experienced by you as we remember Patrick in his life. St. Patrick's Day, St. Patrick's. The three are one, Father, Son, and Spirit. May you experience the love of God. Hey, so St. Patrick's Day. Bless you guys. Bible in Daily Life. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us, wherever you found us. YouTube, BibleInDailyLife.com. Anyway, bless you guys.